everybody. Thanks for joining us for our very first Facebook Live presentation from Experience Israel Now. Today I'd like to take you down to the ground where we learn some lessons from the land of the Bible. And this time it's going to be about sports. I mean, we live in a sports crazy environment. Maybe you didn't know that Israel in the time of the New Testament was also one of those sports crazy environments. And today I'll take you down to see a place that actually gives us physical proof of that. And by the time this is over with, I also want to share with you a parable that Jesus told that has in it a sports illustration. It kind of freaks me out that Jesus knew about sports. And maybe, if there was a newspaper, he read the sports page, but it's true. Now, listen, if we've not had a chance to meet, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Andy Cook. I lead a ministry called Experience Israel Now. We kind of emphasize the word now. You may be aware that very few people ever get to Israel. 1% of the average church is what we're finding makes it to the land of the Bible. But we think those life-changing lessons that are there in the land of the Bible are too valuable to leave thousands of miles away, and so we're trying to bring them to everybody. We have a ministry, you might say, to the 99%. And so we go to churches, prisons, schools, Bible study groups. We provide resources for pastors. We want to bring those images to you and allow them to connect us to the great truths of the Bible. And today, a great lesson for that. Now, back to sports. A man named Herod the Great was king of Israel, king of Judea, when Jesus was born. You probably know him from the Christmas story. Pretty mean kind of guy, killed all the babies of Bethlehem. But Herod was really into sports. And the Greek culture was the Olympic Games were going on during the time of the New Testament and just before the time of the New Testament. And Herod was really into that. And so he built a city called Caesarea. And when he created Caesarea, after 12 years of building, he brings over some Olympic-style games, and I'm going to show that to you, where we zoom down to Caesarea using Google Earth. Now, if you look, there's a very smooth coastline on the coastline of Israel. There's no natural harbor on this part of Israel, and so Herod built one, and that's why he built Caesarea. He wanted a harbor, he wanted a place for his guests from what we call Turkey, Greece, and Italy to come see him in Judea. And so he built Caesarea. And as the city was completed, he brings over Olympic-style games. Now, Herod really was into the Olympic Games. As a matter of fact, he financially rescued the Olympic Games one year, and the Olympic Committee named him president of the Olympics for life. That sounds important, but to tell you the truth, they just kind of made up a title to honor him. Didn't really mean anything. We even have reason to believe that Herod competed in the Olympic Games. I mean, he was quite the athlete. Now, here's the stadium. Here's the theater that overlooks the Mediterranean. And though it's used today for artistic events, musical events, maybe even some theater, when it was originally built, it was going to be part not only of musical entertainment or dramatic entertainment, but it would also be used for sports entertainment. You could see boxing taking place here, wrestling taking place here, where the fans could be right on top of the action. There conceivably were gymnastics competitions. No telling what kind of events were held in this place, but it was indeed part of the sports arena complex here at Caesarea. The more obvious sports arena that's built here is a different kind of stadium, a different kind of theater. It's called a hippodrome. And it's that long horse track that you'll see right in the center of the photograph, running alongside the beach of Caesarea. There's stands all around it. This is, if you ever saw the movie Ben-Hur and that iconic horse race, well, this is where the horse races would be held. It is said that 12 horses and chariots could fit side by side along this track, but that track is so narrow. I mean, I got to envision kind of a NASCAR wreck coming up pretty quick, and that's probably exactly what the organizers wanted and what the fans were hoping for. Now, just to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing, we're going to highlight the track. That's called the Hippodrome right there, and that's where the horses ran. There were other athletic competitions here, but this Hippodrome, the word hippo is the Greek word for horse. Drome is course, horse course. but we would simply say it's a horse track. And so this is where the horse is raced, and you can clearly see the stands where people would sit, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 capacity, and also the where they would run around that centerpiece there. It wouldn't just be horses racing here. There would be foot races here. The athletes running sprints or even long distance races would be held here. You could see gladiatorial games here. As a matter of fact, we do know that gladiatorial games were held here. Blood sport was held here. And so, that all of that happened here. This is clearly a sports complex, a sports arena complex. And we were here a year ago during the Passover break. And during the Passover break, families were getting together, kids are out of school, and something pretty cool happened. As we came to Caesarea just touring, it turns out there was a community celebration, and there were kind of older children taking part here, showing how they could ride horses. And it was really kind of weird, if you want to know the truth. If you know anything about Jewish history, New Testament history, and Roman oppression, it's kind of weird seeing the celebration of the Roman era at the Hippodrome at Caesarea. But what was so cool was seeing the stadium come to life, and that indeed was just spectacular. I can't tell you any other way than that. And so that's the proof of what was going on at Caesarea in a sports world mentality. Pretty cool, I think, to see the evidence, but I want to also make sure we see why this connects with us with the Bible. And so I've got some Bible verses here. I just want to kind of make sure you've seen the sports connection in the New Testament. The writer of Hebrews, we don't know who the writer of Hebrews was, but we do know that the writer of Hebrews was connected with sports because he uses a sports analogy. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. It's just sports terminology. Paul was big into this. Now, Paul was often ministering to people who were in that Greek world, and who were in that Olympic world, that sports crazy world. He says to the Galatians, I wanted to be sure I was not running my race in vain. He says again to the Galatians in a different place, you were running such a good race. Who cut in on you? That's a beautiful sports analogy. He says to Timothy, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And to the Ephesians, they had seen people wrestle, and you know how tough wrestling is, Olympic wrestling. It just wears people out. And he says, you know what? We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against spiritual forces. And suddenly the idea that they all knew about wrestling in an Olympic sense creates a new image for me of the fight we face on a spiritual battle. Now, Jesus one day told a parable about a widow who needed something done, and she needed to go to a judge, but this is the parable of the unjust judge. Now listen to what Jesus says in Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 18. Jesus tells them a parable to show the disciples how to pray and to never give up. So he says, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God or cared about what people thought. There was a widow in the town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he gave in, saying, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps coming back, she keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice so that she will not eventually come and attack me or come and wear me out or come and, as one translation, one paraphrase says, she's going to leave me black and blue. I don't know if you remember another place where Paul says in his writings, I buffet my body so that I will not be disqualified for the prize. I don't want to be like a boxer beating the air. Paul's using a boxing illustration, a shadow boxing. So I buffet my own body. I train my body so that I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. In other words, I want to show people how to follow Jesus, so I've got to first be a follower of Jesus. Well, that whole boxing illustration that Paul used, that word he used for buffeting my body, that's the same word Jesus used when describing how the judge felt when he says, this widow keeps coming back, keeps coming back, keeps coming back. She's going to beat me up unless I give her what she wants. And so I'm going to give her what she wants. And Jesus says, again, in the first line of the parable, this is how you should pray and never give up. One of my favorite writers says, you know, I think God just, he gets so many mundane prayers when somebody actually gets in the ring with him and just keeps coming back and saying, God, I'm not giving up. I think God pays attention. And I love that illustration. Well, I'll wrap it up with this. Paul says to Timothy, Timothy's a Greek kid. You know, he grew up in that Greek culture. He's probably kind of got the sports bug himself. Maybe he's physically fit, probably was. And Paul says to Timothy, you know, it is of some value to be physically fit, but it is much more valuable to be fit spiritually. Physical training has some value, Paul says, but godliness has value for all things. Well, I'll leave you with that. That's enough of today's lesson, and I hope you can kind of connect now more with that sports mentality from the New Testament, because we went to Caesarea. Now, one quick word at the end. I love to come to churches, and I'd love to connect with your church. I'd love to connect with your Christian school. If you're connected with a prison ministry, we bring these lessons to your locations. And so we just need to connect with you. You can find us at experienceisraelnow.com, experienceisraelnow.com, and you can connect with us there. If you like this video, do me a favor. You can respond right now by simply saying, hey, I'm watching from, and just fill in the blank. It'll help us track where this video is going and how this ministry is working. And if you can tag your friends who might like to learn these lessons, it would also help us. Let us get the word out. In March, we're going to be in Israel, and we're going to do our best to do some live Facebook broadcasting so that we can show you the land of the Bible as we walk the land of the Bible. That's all coming up in March, the first week of March. Between now and then, we're going to have several of these sessions. I hope you'll join us, and I hope you enjoyed your opportunity to experience Israel right now.